The mid-60s was a time when your mammy's pals were called your aunties, and nobody bothered. I had armfuls of them, aunties, and I had an extra granny. An elderly woman who lived across the road and who found me quite entertaining for such a wee thing. My memories of her are vague, and I don't know if she was anybody's real granny, but I do remember she was kind to me and that I liked her. As for the auntie situation, it never occurred to me to question how I could have so many of them, even when I discovered that my Auntie Agnes seemed to be everybody's auntie. I called her auntie, and so did my mother and the extended family. In fact, everybody called her auntie, except for my granny, whose auntie she actually was. She just called her Agnes, which I always thought was quite daring. Agnes was born in 1907 to a poor family. Of the many children born to her mother, Mary, only Agnes and one sister survived to adulthood, the rest dying in infancy. Apart from one girl who died of consumption as a young teenager. It was a hard life, made all the more challenging by the head of the household, Old Tam. A miner and a drunken brute whose reputation for ferocious violence was such that even the local police kept their distance. Although Old Tam terrorized the community, one person in the district didn't fear him, Agnes. It was an oft-told tale that one day years later, when only Agnes and Old Tam lived in their room and kitchen, she came home at lunchtime from her job as a weaver to find her father inebriated and roaring in anger as usual. When she refused to make him anything to eat because it would make her late for work, he grabbed that day's newspaper, set it ablaze, and threw it onto the bed in the big room. Agnes just looked at him, then turned her back and told him to burn what he fancied. She then left for work as the brute fought the flames on his own. When telling this story, my granny always added that Agnes stayed in the house with Old Tam until he died. Not out of love or duty but because she had been too fussy when it came to men and had watched the hats till the bunnets went by. Perhaps that's true, I can't be sure. I wonder, though, whether her antipathy towards the blissful state of matrimony didn't have its roots in what she saw around her, drunken, violent men ruling over women who worked inside and outside the home and who were nothing more than skivvies. I think Agnes might have looked at the hats and the bunnets and found no significant difference between them. And so it was that she settled into the single life surrounded by good pals. Naturally, the single life had many plus points, not least the absence of hungry weans and a husband drinking and gambling his way through the weekly wages. So, Agnes lived comfortably, unlike most of her family and friends who struggled to make ends meet, and for whom the pawnshop was a regular haunt. It was always said, though, that Agnes was good to people. She would never see anyone go hungry or any wean shoeless. I can vouch for both. Nary a Sunday passed when Agnes didn't arrive, straight from the chapel via a detour to the barrass, laden with something for everyone. If I was lucky, she'd bring me a wee bag of puff candy or maybe a bagatelle, its cardboard backing musty and soft from sitting too long on the stall. If I was unlucky, she'd bring me a jumper. It wasn't until I was well into my teens that I understood how Agnes's largesse was the difference between survival and the breadline for many in the community. Countless numbers paid their rent and avoided eviction because she saved the day, and many more were able to feed their weans after the local bookie took what little money they had. She was, indeed, a legend, although whether she'd have liked the epithet, I don't know. To us, her closest family, she was just Auntie Agnes, extra generous and a fixture at every celebration. When she died at the age of 81, she was sorely missed, or so it seemed. Sadly, this is where the story takes a darker turn. After Agnes was buried, my family didn't arrange for her to have a headstone, something that shocked me at the time and which has troubled my conscience for 34 years. I'll never know why they left her in an unmarked grave. Money wasn't the issue because Agnes's estate, although small by today's standards, was big enough to cover the cost easily. I mentioned it once at the funeral, but the response I got somehow persuaded me to let it go, and I never brought it up again. But I can't forget it. So, in honor of Agnes, I'm now engaged in tracking down the title deeds for the burial plot, and when I have them, I'll arrange for the erection of a memorial stone. After all these years, some may ask why I'm driven to do this. But the answer is simple: she deserves to be remembered. When strangers pass her grave and see the stone, they'll know she existed, and I believe that's important. After all, she wasn't just my auntie, she was everybody's auntie. Egg and chips. I don't remember how I met them. I don't remember where. The how and the where are as irrelevant now as they were then. The room is crowded and cozy, bright too bright, with long plastic strip lights gracing the high white ceiling. Bob Holness's voice is booming out the big box of a television which is sandwiched between the doorway and the fireplace. Each week Bob's contestants look hopeful and confident. Blockbusters is as much a ritual of this tea time as the egg and chips, which I know will soon be ready. Evie, short, stout, white-grey, Kuthi, sits in her easy chair beside the watery pictured television set. We chat comfortably through the game show, about the questions on the telly and school drama. Bella, a slightly taller, darker version of her sister, joins the conversation. From the kitchen, just behind the sofa, where she stands, penny on, spatula in hand, in front of sizzling pans on the gleaming white Belling electric cooker. Bella and Evie, sisters, companions, housemates, my elderly neighbors from across the road and up the narrow lane. Every Wednesday after school my little brother and I head out down the gloomy flights of stairs from our ugly, modern, top-floor maisonette, across the road, and up the narrow lane to the pretty, old, granite fishermen's cottages. Unlike the rest of the cottages, theirs is set side on to the lane, with a quaint paved garden to the front, studded with rose bushes and climbers. A set of well-worn steps leads up from the lane to the garden. It isn't far from where we live, but it's a world apart. The sisters are waiting for us, with a smile and a cup of tea. 6 sugars please, says my little brother. The plates arrive. Bella places them on our knees and sits down beside us with hers. Sometimes we eat at the small dining table in the back corner of the room. Just enough space for 4. But not today. We eat watching Bob, trying to answer the questions he asks his contestants, laughing when we get them wrong. Mopping up yolk with our chips and sipping sweet milky tea. 2 elderly sisters. Alone. Together. In the moment of childhood it doesn't even cross my mind to ask if they were married, if they have children, grandchildren, any family to call their own. Each week we follow the egg and chips ritual, without question, without hesitation, without asking. My brother and I know we are welcome. We moved to this small northeast fishing town, our new home, just a few years earlier. It feels like a lifetime ago. My brother and I, and our mum. We knew no one. Our reason for being there is irrelevant now. Our friends and family are hundreds of miles away, somewhere warmer, more familiar. We make some friends but are always incomers. The language is a challenge, fit like loons, quines, duckers. It takes a while, but we soon have one way to speak at home, another at school. Playground survival. 101. Many years later. So many things have changed. The place that was strange is now our home. One thing that remains is the warmth in my heart for two lovely ladies. And a plate of egg and chips. In a while, Crocodile. If you had gone to Linlithgow on a particularly cold and windy day in October 2000, you might have come across something resembling a state funeral. The hearse had a police escort and people stopped as the hearse ambled past them. It seemed like half the town crammed itself into the small Catholic church for the funeral mass. Despite the majority of the townspeople being either Church of Scotland or not religious at all. Even once all the seats were full, people were standing at the back, craning their necks to see the service. You'd have been forgiven for thinking that this funeral was for a celebrity. It was the funeral of a lollipop lady. Her name was Teresa, officially, but everyone called her Tess unless you were a child or teacher at the primary school, then it was Mrs. Brown. Still, I know you're wondering how a lollipop lady ends up getting such a brilliant send-off. Maybe you're wondering if it was simply that she was born and bred in Linlithgow? Well, she wasn't. She was from County Tipperary in the Republic of Ireland, and she became part of the forgotten Irish generation, that is, part of a generation of people where almost half had emigrated to other countries for work and many never went back. Tess did spend the majority of her life in Linlithgow, though she'd married a local man who she met in London, and they'd relocated to Linlithgow to be near his family. They had 5 sons together, and in 1972, Tess became a lollipop lady, wielding her big lollipop stick against traffic like Gandalf facing off the Balrog. She carried sweets in her pockets for the school children, creme eggs at Easter, and people have said that she always had a smile on her face or was laughing, except for the time some kids stole her stick, leading her to chase after them, and a week's detention for them. Some people remember being gently scolded as children if they crossed the road where they shouldn't. She'd tell them, "I'd rather it was me that got hurt than any of you." She'd look after kids at the crossing point until she saw their parents turning up, and she crossed at least 2 generations of children across that one stretch of road. People remember her being there when they were children, and then again when they took their own children to school. Some of them ended up working in local shops in Linlithgow as teens and adults, still remembering Tess as always being ready for a blether and a laugh. As for the teachers, one former headmaster recalled how Tess would always greet him with a bear hug and 3 words that are now etched on the plaque of the memorial bench next to where she stood for work. "Hello, my honey." Tess was my nana, and I was one of the many children she helped across the road on the way to school. I can still picture her now with her yellow hat perched atop her brown perm, her high-vis jacket down to her knees, and her furry Ugg-like boots years ahead of the fashion craze that swept the UK in the early 2000s. I used to visit at weekends, and the pair of us would set off for the shops on the other side of town, her shopping trolley in tow. If it was raining, she had a little plastic cover for her perm, but she always wore the same big, red coat with a golden brooch fastened on her left side, come rain or shine. This journey from her house to the shops was only about 20 minutes on foot, but with her it was an entire day trip. You couldn't get along the street without bumping into somebody who knew her and who wanted to say hello. By the time we were halfway to the shops, it was usually time for lunch at the coffee nook. Granddad must have wondered what had become of us every week. Sometimes we'd get a bus back if we'd been gone too long, and she always offered the bus drivers a banana or an apple. Everywhere she went in Linlithgow, you would hear, "Hello, Tess. How're ya dang?" She was 69 when she died, still working. And she was about to go on a trip to London to visit her brothers. The last time I saw her, she was packing for the trip and lent me a book, telling me to give it back to her next time. I had to sit through an entire school assembly where the head teacher talked about my Nana and what her loss meant to everyone. After that, the world had a little bit less about it, at least for me. Over the years since, I've met people who worked with her or knew her in some way, and when I mention her, their faces light up with the memory. I've even had people approaching me just to tell me something about her. The local Facebook page was full of memories from people to mark the 20th anniversary of her death. Tess was genuinely one in a million, said one man, remembering her, and I'm inclined to agree. I've never met anyone quite like her since. She didn't save the world, but she brought love and laughter to it, wrapped up in the cuddly wee package of an old Irish and new Scottish woman. I've already written about how she used to say hello. But she always used to say for goodbye, "See you later, alligator." And you know what? For someone who has never been religious, a part of me hopes I will, so Nana. This one's for you in a while, Crocodile. Blue car. I remember Mum tellin' us this one time. We were there, in the livin' room. I can still picture the scene. Asterisk. Ma Dad's where he always is, in his chair beside the fireplace. Ma older brither still at the table, the bairn sittin' on the flare beside Ma Dad, readin' a comic. He's 9, Ma wee brither, but we still see him the bairn, 'cause he's 6 years younger than me, a great wee guy, dead funny, but spoiled rotten. I am edgin' towards the door, tryin' to escape before Mum decides she needs help wi the dishes. I am already a bit late to meet ma pal Froggy, and we're plannin', or rather hopin', to get up to a wee bit nonsense the night, maybe chat up some lassies and that. It bane Friday. Froggy is actually daft enough for anythin', so he is. He's a bit mental, but wi a heart o' gold, gieu his last penny, so he wid. He's called Froggy 'cause he's already our 6 foot tall, wi. Huge hands and feet, but skinny as a rake. Ma Dad says he has the muscle definition o' a plate o' spaghetti. And he really isn't the smartest, I have to admit. Limpy Proven, our English teacher, gies him a hard time for bane thick as mince. I mind this one time when Froggy had gied him a specially dumb reply to a question, ol Limpy just stared at him for a bit, then comes ootwi this really nasty line. "Does your mother actually feed you, Muir?" he asks, "or does she just water you twice a week?" I had a hard time explainin' that to him later. With it in his feelin's. To be totally honest, if his brains were dynamite, he couldn't blow his nose. Asterisk. Anyway, back in ma story, ma mum speaks Mrs. Patterson at number 11's man's got a new car, she says. I should explain something. Non-ao the men neighbors had names as far as Mum wis concerned. And the women a had a number attached. No that it wis necessary, they a had different names in Our street. Oh, except for the Wilsons, and they weren't really in Our wee street, they were on the corners o' the big road. Mum called them Mrs. Wilson on the corner, and Mrs. Wilson on the other corner. So their men were called Mrs. Wilson on the corners man, and Mrs. Wilson on the other corners man. These rules didn't apply to our neighbors. She wis Flossie next door, and he wis Harry Kirby, just the one word, go figure, Elaine, who wis 5 years older than me in a total dreamboat, pure fantasy material, wis Flossie next doors wee lassie, and Johnny, who wis just ma age, wis Flossie next door's boy, that simple. No only that, but a unmarried women were we. Lassies te ma mum, I don't know why. Even that Agnes McKay up the road, number 17, and there's nothin' we aboot Agnes McKay, I can assure yees. I mean, well, yees know what I mean, I am sure. Asterisk. Okay, back to the story. Mrs. Patterson at number 11's man's got a new car, Mum says. Now ma dad's readin' the paper, of course, like always. And no really payin' much attention. He reads it fae the back tae the front, like every man in Scotland, maybe even the world, I don't know, because that's where the fitba is. Mum pauses. She's great at pausin', Mum is, she knows just how long tae pause for. She watches ma dad, sees him start to notice that she's paused, and he's thinkin' o' what to say, cause he's no really sure what she wis blet heron on aboot, then she carries on. It's blue, she says, dark blue. Oh says ma dad, which is what he says maybe 99% o' the time. Dark blue, she says again, what do you make of that? She's using her posh voice, speaking correctly, to show that we're as good as Mrs. Patterson at number 11 and her man even if we haven't got a new car, dark blue or otherwise. What kind is it? Ma Brither asks, barely looking up fae his motorbike magazine. I have just told you, my mother is getting more posh. By the minute, it is dark blue, navy, perhaps. Nah, says Ma Brither, wit. He stops abruptly as Ma Dad does something that makes the paper snap. Oh says Ma Dad, wi is slightly different inflection. This time, he is nearly as good wi inflections as Ma Mum is wi. Pauses. He has aboot 57 variations of oi that he uses to suit any situation that might arise. And a wee movement that might be interpreted as a nod o' the hide, sometimes. Like now. Ma Mum purses her lips, and her chin goes doonin' back up. She is satisfied wi the family reaction to her news. She looks at me, geese a wee nod o' her and towards the dishes. Ah sigh, but only inside, ah wouldn't be bad tae ma Mum, even if she is gonti make me late. Efter froggy'll wait. Ah nod back. She pulls the right side o' her cardigan across her chest, then the left side, picks up some plates and marches through to the kitchen. I heap the cups and saucers into a pile and follow her.